Hey, everybody, it is April 4th. It's our third session. I'll turn it over to you.
We just have two counters to some of the stuff that you had in your packet. I don't know if you want them one at a time or
However you want to deliver them.
I'll just deliver them one at a time. That's just in reference to the shift differential. All the language in the top we're good with. We looked at the times, and it's hard to define a time because we have overlapping shifts, and then we have right now, and that is subject to change, but we have 10 hours on the weekdays, 12 hours on the weekends. So without creating a really large chart that has everything in it, I think it's a little easier to just say as defined by the department. I don't know if that runs into problems for you, but then like if you have a swing shift person, they're not clocking in for one thing from 4 to 5, and then a different thing from 5 to midnight, and then another thing from midnight to 2. And then on top of that, then you're not paying the swing shift that 5% after midnight. You just keep it standardized to where, however we define swing shift, gets that 2.5% for their time there. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a little concern on how we're tracking how they're actually, we know that they're earning that differential pay if I don't know what hours they're working. I mean, the definition of a shift should come with defined constraints, so you know that if you're working within those hours, you're receiving X amount of pay. If there's no actual definition and it moves, how do you know who to apply it to equitably?
Okay. So would it be okay to have overlap in those though? So if you said swing shift is 4 to 2 on the weekdays, and then we said weekends is, well, we don't have a swing shift on the weekends, but let's say midnights, for example. Say Monday through Thursday is 9 to 7, and then the weekends is 7 to 7. And then we put that the swing shift is 4 to 2, even though there's overlap, we can do that.
I think we can, as long as we have it defined somehow.
Okay.
Because right now, I don't know how to apply it to people equitably, especially where we're allowing, like if you go over or you come in early, we're allowing you to clock in, because that big
Sure.
language change kind of drove us needing to define the shifts themselves.
And I think we can easily define the shifts. The only thing I was worried about is having them have to clock in and out like 3 different times in the day because of how it
And I
is.
think you could just do it once, and then at the end, it could be reconciled by either the employee as they submit their timesheet, or perhaps we could look to the chief to see if your payroll clerk could help adjust those.
Sure. And I don't even think we need to do that as long as it's okay to have overlap in.
Yeah, as long as it's defined so we know how to apply it, because where we took that constraint off, I need to know when the shifts actually occur.
Sure. And I don't think that's an issue. Like I said, the only thing I was worried about was the overlap. And if we could have overlap or if it needed to be.
As long as it's defined, I think we're okay.
Okay.
So question with that then, because dispatch has,
Yeah, cover shift.
we have a cover shift and we have a swing shift, but our swing shift is different hours than patrol swing shift. So what we need to do a swing shift is from 4 p.m., which is what patrol starts, till 3 a.m. is when dispatch ends. So it's covered in that whole time frame.
Well, if you'll notice, I don't know if you have this in front of you, on column 3, we put eligible positions.
Okay.
We could split the line out so ECOs had a different line with the
Okay.
different shifts.
That's my question.
As long as we define. it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has to be defined.
Okay.
And it's always been ambiguous because the contract didn't need it to be defined, but that adjustment in language is what precipitated this move from us.
Okay. So yeah, I think we can just create a separate line that says dispatch swing, dispatch cover.
Okay.
As long as it's defined.
So do you want us to put together another proposal with all
Yes.
that language?
Okay.
Please don't ask me to do
I,
that.
I remember you saying like, I can take it and put it together.
I can, but I can just sit here and write it down for us, but it's gonna have to come out
And
of your brain.
I guess my question is for like the midnight shift, because weekends have a completely different, it's not completely different, but they start at 7 instead of 9. Could you put a range of hours for a midnight shift? Because depending, I know this department would love to go back to 10s for weekends, but
I'm
does
seeing
that
nodding.
happen? Does that happen or doesn't it?
It's
And
been
I'd
the
hate
stated
to,
for years.
yeah, I'd hate for something
So-
to come up in the future because of it didn't, right?
Well, and so right now we're on 12, so if we addressed it as 12s, and then if in January we went back to 10s, how would you suggest?
My other option is we could revert to the existing language and pull that one change I had put in that it would count for carryover. I could pull that language back out, so I can balance that.
Okay.
Yeah, however you think's best. We just want to make sure that if the shift changes, that they're getting
Okay.
equitable, and that we're able to put a swing shift back in on the weekend if we need to.
Okay. I'm obviously gonna need some time to think on this one.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's where we weren't sure the ins and outs of how to define it and leave it open to be able to switch our shifts if need be. So.
It'd be nice if we only had 2 shifts, but that's.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Any other questions or clarification on that?
Not on that one, no.
That's our other one. That's just the exact same language. We're just asking for $1 additional on field training, just again to try to make it more attractive to people to become FTOs and remain FTOs, so that we can try to standardize that program a little bit. We do appreciate the going to the hourly. I think that's a
It makes
huge
it
step.
easier for everybody.
Yeah, and it's got additional benefits with that, so we do appreciate that. We're just seeing if there's maybe a little wiggle room to try to make it a little more attractive for us.
All right, Ken, 6 minutes in, I need a caucus.
Okay.
You know, to talk to myself. All right,
How long?
Paradise is available to you. Give me about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And we're back, it's 9:36 a.m. So we considered your counters, and is this the only counters you have, or are there more coming?
We have one more counter,
That's been prepared, and then there's,
and then we just have some clarifying questions
Okay.
that may lead to one.
so this is in reference to the city bundled offer, slides 24 and 25. Referencing clothing and boot allowances, current and the proposed uniform standards and its higher expectations. The counter is to, similarly to the creation of the pay structure for TAC, ATAC, and ACE that's already been included for ECO staff, to include an ad pay line per pay period of $21.73, so that our non-sworn civilian members of the bargaining unit will retain equity with the rest of the bargaining unit with regards to the clothing allowance.
So the clothing allowance in the police contract has always perplexed me, because we issue you your uniforms. The civilians are issued uniforms, and all of those are machine washable. So what exactly is the clothing allowance used for?
So in these cases, in the proposed structure, they would be issued shirts. However, they would still be required per policy to have business casual attire with regards to the rest of their outfit, which might not be part of what they already would be able to supply on their own terms. But it is a requirement of their employment that they have appropriate shoes, pants, etc.
But that's a requirement of all employment.
Sure.
Sworn officers, the clothing allowance I've understood, you are issued uniforms, but there is additional gear or items that you have on your person daily or that are specialty items for your job function. Because being a police officer in the field has nothing to do with the civilian life. Civilians is a little bit harder for me because we're issuing you clothes. You're getting double or triple the clothing allowance that any city employee is getting who is in the field. So we are addressing equity across the city, not just within the bargaining unit. So this is probably a no from the city.
So I guess the other part that we had. In your package, there's, on page 4, it shows slide 8. It talks about the medical, dental, HRA, VIVA, EPA, and bilingual reverting to the city. It just says this is a summary of proposed changes, but we didn't find a slide that.
Yeah, it's just those sections would be completely removed from contract.
Okay.
Just like the pay tables aren't in the presentation, but we have addressed some of those changes here.
Okay.
So yeah, Article 7, 13, Article 14, the entirety, and Article 15 would be removed.
So they would be removed. There wouldn't be any language that says that.
No, they would just default to the city standard.
I guess our heartache, just, we're okay with all of that, outside of the VIVA. We really still, I think that's a huge benefit for our people to have the 1,300 lump sum. That my understanding is the city doesn't get that, they just get the
We have a per paycheck amount.
paycheck. So I guess that's the only hiccup on that. Do you have a suggestion on?
One of the biggest parts of this was collapsing the singular ad pays into per paycheck amounts, and that does include VIVA.
Does that question for that?
No, I think we just need to look at it and.
But I guess just to clarify, right, because it's different for us. So it's per paycheck, but then how do you address with the rest of the city they have their wellness visit, that's 700?
Wellness is still paid as a lump sum,
So
but
that-
it is an on-demand payment. It's not regularly
Okay, so the
scheduled.
1,300 is per paycheck,
Yep.
and then if they choose to have a wellness visit, that 700 goes in.
They submit the paperwork
as a
in just
lump
like
sum.
you do now.
Okay, all right.
So I guess my question is, if there's that vehicle for a $700 lump sum payment that's built into the structure anyways, on-demand would make that more complicated than pre-scheduled. Why is it that taking away the one-time planned 1,300 is a priority?
Because we're looking at standardizing benefits across the city, and we're looking at eliminating on-demand payments as much as possible. The wellness program, that wellness visit is very important to our medical plan to keep costs low, which is why we have maintained the lump sum.
So I guess what you just said is you're looking at eliminating on-demand payments as well. So is
As
that
many as
700
possible.
also on the table for going away?
That isn't anything that has been discussed, no.
Well, right, I'm just referencing what you just said. If you're looking
understand.
at eliminating on-demand lump sums, which directly references the $700 wellness payment as well.
And I have the statement before that said the 700 wellness will remain a lump sum.
I guess, and I think what he's trying to say is if it's in the contract, we feel, I think as a bargaining unit, we feel like it's a little bit more secure,
I
right?
understand.
When it's in just the city policy and the city, we kind of don't have that locked in there. So I mean, I understand his concern and.
I understand it as well. However, for me to afford the pay scale that I put on the table in front of you, that money can just not continually come from new tax dollars. I have to find a way to balance benefits and exit old benefits that are no longer applicable to their function. And part of that is we need the city to be able to respond to our medical plan as a whole, not in two different groups.
Yeah, clarification on that. What was the proposal for the trauma stuff? Just wanted clarification on that. Where did I put that?
40 hour. Is that what you're talking about?
The question with this was that really specific to one-off experiences.
So proposal number 10, talking about the trauma recovery / mental health time. Right now, it just says time may be granted to a sworn officer experience a traumatic event, so am I to understand that that doesn't include emergency communications officers?
That is correct. It is only for sworn.
Is there, can I ask the thinking behind that?
Yes. And let me phrase this correctly. So there is witnessing trauma and there is hearing trauma.
Sure.
And where you're addressing the people in the field handling and witnessing the trauma, we understand that ECOs have a very, very difficult job because they have to hear those conversations and they have to coordinate the officers going in and out. But this is for the actual people in the field handling the situation. So that is why it is limited to sworn.
Do you foresee any wiggle room to include dispatch in that?
What's the justification for adding them?
Just especially, I mean, I refer back to the officer involved shooting that we had. I feel like they face quite a bit of trauma with that as well. Even just hearing it, I mean, they had a really difficult time with it.
How do I draw the line then when stenos say, well, I had to read about it? And how do I draw the line when records say, well, I had to process papers on it? I have to have a line somewhere.
Ours is called secondary trauma. That's 100% a secondary trauma for stenos, and I'm not discrediting them whatsoever. It's traumatic to hear that.
Yes, it is.
But they have never had to listen to a mom screaming at you that her 16-year-old daughter just shot herself in the head. I have suffered with that call for my whole 12 years of my career. Had I been able to take time away from what I was doing at that time and say, I need a day to just process this, instead of using my own sick time, because that's frowned upon. You don't have time to cover sick time. As a new ECO, you are guaranteed this 40 hours. I do think that would help with our dispatch retention and the fact that most of us take call after call after call after call. Patrol has a chance to recover from their calls. They can take a minute and go sit in their car for 20 minutes that's busy and we won't use them. I don't get that opportunity. I go from a mom with her 16-year-old daughter that shot herself in the head to a family of 4 that just found themselves dead in a house to a baby choking. I don't get that reprieve at all for my 12-hour shift. It's 12 hours of I'm facing trauma every hour, every minute of my day.
And I think
So
I
to be able-
applaud the city for doing this.
Yes,
Because I
absolutely.
think it's something that needs to be addressed and I think we're doing a good job at it. But I think the trauma that dispatch does experience, like she says, and the repetitive trauma, just like some officers, yeah, it sometimes we can as patrolmen take a minute, right? Hey boss, I need a minute. And there are certain situations that we have outlined, right? If they're involved in a shooting or something, we pull them off the street, we bring them in. There's that. But there's also those little bits of trauma that we see, whether it's a child being assaulted or somebody who has just shot themselves or hung themselves. And then we go to the next call, And then we sit and think, oh man, I need this. For a long time, we would just go, I'll deal with it, right? It's just what we do. This addresses that. But I think it would be irresponsible not to look at dispatch side of it. And I understand where do we draw the line,
Yes.
but I think with dispatch, hearing stuff, hearing screaming, hearing gunshots over the phone, hearing an officer saying, I've been shot, right? Those things, and especially where they have personal relationship with those officers, those things are important to address.
Okay.
And so I think to just say, the line is here and not include dispatch, and then maybe look in the future. There is studies with dispatch that say their secondary trauma is very serious,
Okay.
and they do affect it. I can't say records, reviewing a tow form or the other records that they do that may be involved in something and how that affects them. But I do know with the studies that with dispatch, there is that concern, and I think it at least needs to be looked at. And so I guess before we give you a proposal on that, I think what we're asking is, what is the wiggle room? I know you said, right, where do I draw the line, but
Well, I think that's where you draw the
I
line.
think that's
Right,
where
that's where
you
you draw the line. The line is
Sworn and ECO.
sworn and dispatch, and that's your line. And that's
Okay.
where you draw the line. And that's what I think we're in agreement with.
Okay.
And again, I bring back to the officer shooting time is all of us that were working that night it's built in that patrol was able to be told they have time off. Dispatch was told, you can have time off, but you have to use your own time. You have to use your sick time, your holiday time. So I do think that something like this would help with that encouragement to take that extra day. Because I did not take that extra day. I came back to the floor. So I do think that would be an encouragement for us to take a minute and even if it's not a full 40 hours. I'm not saying it has to be exactly the same as patrol, but if you're gonna draw the line somewhere, I do think it needs to be patrol and ECO.
Okay.
And again, I want to touch on what Dane said. I appreciate the fact that you guys brought this. I
Yes,
think it's
absolutely.
a great step forward, and we really appreciate it to begin with.
If we edit in patrol, sworn, and ECOs, are we good on the rest of this proposal?
I think so.
We'll make that change at the table if you're comfortable with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So on page 5, on line 87, I'm going to say sworn officer / ECO. In the contract, any other references to sworn officer after that line will include the / ECO. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to turn to the page to see where I can edit. And then if there's any other reference later on, I'll
Make sure it's just added to.
I'll just do a search for that. Because it's kind of a long one.
Yeah, it's okay.
That I can do right now. Just go ahead and next one.
Okay, I think that's all the counters that we had at this point. And clarification questions.
What about the pay scale?
We like it, but where it was a package deal, we didn't have an answer from our union just yet. Because we wanted to make sure that those counters were addressed, because we were to understand that we can't just accept the pay scale.
No, it has to be
Yeah, so
as a
that's,
whole.
so that's what I'm
So-
saying. We like the pay scale.
These three, this is the only holdup to us TAing that.
Yes.
What about, because I don't have anything in writing in front of me on removing on these. Are you gonna submit something in writing, or was that just a conversation that we had?
Oh, no, we'll put together a proposal.
If we can caucus real quick, we can throw something together real fast.
No problem. Paradise is still available to you. AM. So I had a meeting of the minds. There were 3 of us, if that makes you feel better. The city could make sure I'm on the right one. So I moved everything into one document, and the $4 an hour, we can't do 5. We can't go to $4.50. And, I didn't save it. This is what happens when you have documents open on 2 computers. All right, see, didn't open right. We would be willing to make this change in our proposal for shift differential. And then we remove the times of the shift. Basically, shift would be determined by the chief based on business need. It would be available in the chief's office or as requested. So that way we would still have the guardrails, but we have the business ability to flex based on everyone's strange shift schedules for each division. So we think we've addressed those two the best we can at the moment.
And then in this table, is there a line for the dispatch-specific coverage? Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I didn't scroll down far enough.
Thank you.
We agree. We didn't want to define them, but I didn't know how else to handle it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I kept going, how do I write this one? And it just got bigger and bigger, so then I pared it back down, and you guys are like, you missed it.
On that addresses, like if you're on 66 and 77.
Yeah, I think it'll somewhat cover everything.
Language is good.
Yes.
Okay. This is our last proposal. If you're good, I'll bring it up.
Yep.
Do you want the?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did he take his own?
This is in reference to the VIBA. We're hoping that this is a compromise. We agree that we would do the $50 per pay period. We're just hoping to maybe include that in our contract language, so then in the event that there's a change in the city policy, that's kind of guaranteed for us. But we'd go to the same $50 per pay period.
Just, it's just that little bit of security we feel, right, for our members. I don't know how big of a deal it would be to maintain that in the contract for you, but I guess it just kind of gives us that little bit of,
I understand.
So yeah, part of the drive for that is like I searched the employee handbook, the personnel policy manual, and the only reference that I could give or find for the HRA VIBA disbursements was actually on the Human Resources website for the FY25 guide to City of Pocatello benefits.
Yeah, that's where it's maintained.
Okay, so
And that's built each fiscal year off of council decisions.
sure.
I'm not gonna lie, this is a tough hurdle for me. And I will take it to the team and I'll talk to them, but this isn't something that I can adjust from my side. Is that everything for today? All right, well, I will get a hold of you and we'll schedule a time for the week of the 14th then.
Thank you.
Thank you.